Again, welcome. We are here from Grace Healing Ministries, and I'm Larry Reynolds.
And I'm Ina Hale.
Welcome. One thing you'll learn about this process as you start to look at the different videos that we go through with Grace Healing is we commit to first engage in prayer, and we understand it to be the breath of God's presence within us. So we're going to engage in prayer first to first establish recognition of God's presence and a holy protection over you, that you would only embrace what God wishes for you to receive, and that anything that is not what you're supposed to receive at this time of your journey, that it would be set aside within you. So we just open our hearts together, and again we join first in the breath of God's presence, and you hear language that you may not be completely familiar with, but you will become familiar with as we breathe into the Abun. That is the breath of God's presence. Yeshua, known as Jesus to you, many that have listening. Yeshua was his real name, and he taught us to speak first Abun as we enter into a state of prayer, when he taught us how to pray. Abun lai bashna kundalava khalam ule bishnuye bentru kobliana kitairos shebiandro tole mene vera kundru yush meliandre kinidika tutura bashna Yalve lachim albeleanu kuturi isma yaturi yashma khalamum tuturi biliamano kuturaba. And breathing deep, Abun solele mia kudrabas ni pierontro, kotor kabra khalamana kiturista kiyamano kotoraba. La khalamano tuturista shemiatru. Yahweh, God and Creator. Yeshua, first utterance, first breath of our God and Creator. Abun, your breath that resides within us. We offer thanksgiving as we surrender now into this time of introduction, that all people might be blessed by this surrender into the instrument that you have formed, which is Grace Healing. And again, as an introduction, please know that Grace Healing is a non-profit organization here to help people in any sort of need or people seeking spiritual understanding. We serve many people throughout the world. We also serve orphanages. We have one in Andhra Pradesh, India. Beautiful children there. There's over 52 children in that building, presently cared for by John and his wife Esther. We are so thankful for the opportunity to serve and walk in love for them. We have another orphanage in Afghanistan, 2 in Africa, 1 located in Nigeria. So there's many things that we do, but our desire is to first free people from many of the religious instructions out there today, because quite frankly we see within the generations of today and previous generations people wondering, where's the love?
Yes.
Where's the love of God within the instructions we hold? And Ina, I was blessed to meet Ina a little over 10 years ago down in Tucson, Arizona.
Yes.
And I guess, what was it that kind of grasped you around Grace Healing? What was it that brought you an interest?
Well, it was quite interesting because at the time when we were living in Arizona, my husband and I, actually I was quite involved in ministry. And so I thought, through my years, I've always wanted to know more about Yeshua, Jesus. As I always said, and like Larry's sharing, Jesus, and to most people, know that's ultimately Yeshua. I was involved in ministry and also growing in God. I wanted more.
Right.
And there was a time that we were going through in Arizona that my husband and I, something had come over me, actually sort of physically, and a dear sister in the Lord, in Yeshua, had connected with Larry over in Arizona, and she just said, Ina, I just believe that you're supposed to go see this guy with Grace Healing.
Yes.
And something inside of me just said, we're supposed to go. And so Chris, my husband, he didn't hesitate. We came and met Larry, and he just took us into this prayer of the breath of God, and it just totally transitioned me, and it took me to a deeper place. And there was a process, because I wasn't really brought up in the church.
Mm-hmm.
However, through the years, because of my wanting more of God, was just led to certain ministries.
Mm-hmm.
And just one thing led to another, without going into a whole lot. Was actually so drawn to the ministry of Grace Healing. And again, it's not about Larry. It's about how God is using him in such a way that I have never experienced, about the love. And that just so freed me of things of the past, of those, well, you're not doing enough.
Right.
You need to be in ministry. How can I get closer to God when really he's in me? And I knew that.
Yes.
I knew that. But there again, the breath wasn't aware of a deepening part. And so going into a deeper meditation of Yeshua and the names of God, Yahweh, Father,
Yes.
and I've learned these, Yeshua, Son.
Do you mind if I make a comment there?
Sure.
One of the things that I learned as I've experienced these instructions, and again, I should clarify for each of you out there that I only speak English personally. I failed Spanish, I failed French in high school. I was never very good at picking up languages, but for some reason, as I sought God more deeply within my life, God stirred me into a prayer language. Some people call it tongues, other people call it prayer language. But the bottom line is, God has taken me into every language on the planet. He's had me speaking in people over Czechoslovakian, Russian, Mayan, Algonquin, Abnaki. He's Arabic, Aramaic, Hebrew, whatever it happens to be that God wishes to express in that moment. And I want to clarify for you what that means. And also let you know personally that this is what happens with you on a daily basis, and you don't even know it. The reality was, I was involved in a healing service down in Bath, Maine. And I was asked to do the healing service. And one of the things that fascinated me was I was asked to teach about this tongues thing that Larry does. And I said, well, let me ask each of you in the congregation, and I think I shared this with you before, but I asked the congregation, has anybody been in a place where the phone rang and they pick up the phone? I mean, for those of you who don't know, the phone rang back when we used to actually have phones with a cord. It was hanging off the wall and all that good stuff. And somebody's on the phone, it's a friend of yours, and they're in deep distress. And you're there for them, and you're listening to their needs and the concerns that they have, and it's pouring out of them. And this story is heavy in the weight of what they're experiencing, the loss of a loved one or whatever they're going through, loss of a job. And as they're doing this, you're sitting there inside yourself going, oh my God, I don't even know what to say to them. And you're like, oh God, help me. What am I supposed to do? And all of a sudden you find coming off the tip of your tongue wisdom you didn't even know existed within you. And you're giving this sense of wisdom, and you're like hearing what's coming out of your mouth going, wow, this is... And you're finding the person on the other end of the phone shifting to a place of peace.
Yes.
Shifting to a state of freedom. They're being freed from the sufferings they're presently experiencing and the questions they hold in their minds. And they may not have all the answers yet, but you've given them a moment of peaceful awareness. Now, to simplify this, that's the gift of tongues. God had overtaken your vocal center, okay? And may have shown up in English, or it may have shown up in Aramaic, or it may have shown up in Greek, or whatever it happens to do. It's God desiring to bless the person before you, or to increase you in the awareness of God's presence.
Yes.
So even as we breathe now and we center upon God's presence, there was a time where I had to let go of everything I thought I knew, all my religious upbringing and my churching background and my ministerial experiences with, like non-denominational faith backgrounds or Catholic Church or whatever. I had to let go of those things. And I had to let go of everything I thought I knew and honestly reach directly to God. Not what religion was telling me God was. Not what religion told me Jesus was.
Yeah, exactly.
But I had to let go of that. And it was, honestly, it was a course of like 6-hour period that I was honestly dying to myself. I was dying to my beliefs, dying to the desires that I held on to within my thoughts or expectations, because I felt something stirring within me, and I just could not understand how humanity described a God as a judging, vengeful God. And I that wasn't my God.
Yeah.
But as I let go of these things, all of a sudden something rose up inside me, and it was this awareness of Yahweh, like you said, Yahweh, God. And then, but you said God Father. What I understand from Yeshua's instruction is it's not Father, it's Habun, oh breathing life, the very nature of God's presence in both the feminine and the masculine. But in the early stages of forming belief, we as a society of humanity were first patriarchal, man's rule, men in charge. So we altered the full breadth of language that Yeshua gave us of God and condensed it down to a masculine form.
Yep, that's right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And I believe that the greater depths of love, wisdom, clarity, and order come from within what would be described the feminine side of God, the wisdom, clarity, love, compassion. Those things rise from the very thing that we as man have set aside. So as we hear Yah, which is the Spirit of God, Yahweh, the noun form of calling upon God's presence, Yahshua, actual name of God. It's not another name like Jesus. Jesus was formed out of Greek because they didn't have a Y in Greek, so they came up with this misnomer, and it was instead of Y, it was IE, so it would give them the ye sound. And from that, they also wanted to connect him because they didn't fully understand it, but they knew he was like this divine creation thing, so they wanted to connect him to a God character. So they connected this ye to Zeus. Remember the god of Zeus?
Yeah.
The Greek god of Zeus? So we take the perfect name that was formed before time, and we alter it to be something, in my understanding, as lesser. Because it's man's construct that formed these images of gods.
Amazing.
So we turn it into Jesus instead of the original term, which actually came with God's own name. Yahshua. Yahshua. And then there's Yahweh returning again. And then there's Yahalal, to worship the one and only Spirit of God. Then there's Yahweh Elohim, the triune nature of God. So there's Yahweh, perfect spirit, Yeshua, perfect flesh, Abun, breath of God's Spirit manifested throughout all blessed things of creation. That's our understanding within Grace Healing, and it comes of a loving God.
Yes.
It isn't of this judgmental God. And what I had to reconcile as I talked with people and taught them about the importance of understanding what tongues were and how God stirs his language within you, whether it comes up in English, Hebrew, Aramaic, whatever it is. The reality is I had to face an understanding within myself, but I had never been taught this. I didn't know the name Yahweh. As it was rising in me, I knew it, but I'd never heard it spoken in language on the earth.
That's so neat.
And then hearing Yeshua, when I let go of that term Jesus, all of a sudden I was hearing Yahweh, Yeshua, and this was rising in me in an understanding. Not words or voices, but this knowing came into me.
That's a difference that I've come to understand. The knowing.
In what way?
Just what you described.
Okay.
That within. It was rising, and I could not articulate. I just knew within. It was just a love that was rising up. And there are no words. And that's what I couldn't... I couldn't get it out. I'm getting better where I'm verbalizing that now. It's starting to come up, but it had to be in the relationship with Yeshua,
Yes.
Yahweh.
Yes.
Abun, the breath of God,
Yes.
being in his presence. He's always there. We all know that, but what levels do we want to go? And for me
Right.
personally is to go as far as it possibly can. And this is with Grace Healing is amazing in what you and how God has used you mightily. So all these things are very stirring, but it's definitely that within when he says the knowing.
Yes.
You know that you know that you
And
know.
that's key because there's a lot going on within counsel in the world today. Knowledge of man
Yeah.
is supplanting the wisdom of God. It's kind of moving the wisdom of God's presence out. And like I said, when we were taught, I don't know about you, but personally, I was taught of a judging God, an angry God, a vengeful God. And inside me, even as a child, there was something that I could not agree with those descriptives of my God, my perfect and loving. I felt a loving awareness of God's presence that didn't fit with that terminology. So I had to process that within myself as well, to reconcile it before God, to say, why are they teaching us this stuff of something I don't feel is you? As I was seeking God. And as I mentioned a short term ago, dying to myself, I started to recognize that there were things I knew when I was younger that I was taught away from.
Yeah.
There was an understanding of a loving and perfect God within me that couldn't be touched by the knowledge of man. It couldn't be.
It can't be. What I have experienced, because I have experienced over the last 10 years, and that's why I can say I can stand here as a not only testimony but witness.
Yes.
You're talking about the knowing, you're talking about the love of God just rising up, and the conflict that I had was with church. It seemed, well, you got to keep that at church. That's for church.
Right.
And what I wanted and what I was seeking out, seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be open.
Yes.
So I was doing that. And I know we're all individually, we're given a free will. And he loves us so much that we have that opportunity. And everyone is graced in a certain place. And we're all graced, we're loved. He's chosen all of us. But what are we choosing to do with it?
Right.
And mine was, on my walk, is that I wanted more than just the four walls of the church. And I'm not downing any of them. However, there was always something that man would step in and keep me from reaching
Right.
a deeper place of God that I knew within that there was.
Mm-hmm.
And even
Well, that's one of the main reasons why Grace Healing was formed. Because what I've learned through this process, the way you described it, like not limited to the four walls.
Yeah.
And that's what Grace Healing is. Because in my understanding, Yeshua wouldn't be sitting in the walls. He'd be out ministering in love. He'd go to people and love them. And I don't care what their background is. What I found within a lot of my Christian brothers and sisters and other faiths that I watched and observed in times where I've served within Palestinian mosques or I've served within Jewish temples or whatever, what I found is they kind of isolated themselves to their belief system within those walls.
Mm-hmm.
And what it became was the walls almost became an instrument of divide. Instead of what I see, which is like Grace Healing, we are not allegianced or affiliated with any one individual belief, but we are first to seek God in every single thing we do.
Yes.
And then we form our allegiance first unto God, that we might be utilized by God in every faith walk, every fraternal organization, every business entity, every group setting, every individual. It's about moving us to a place of higher service, not being confined to a manly structure, but being expanded to the fullness of God's creation. It's how God has manifested things through India and through Afghanistan, and because it's a willingness not to be limited to the nature of what we have. And as we go forth and listen to people in other forms of belief, we aren't fearful to expose ourselves to that, because we're not seeking their belief system to find ourselves within it.
Yes.
We're surrendering to seek God first as we observe their belief system. And we love them.
Yes.
Because we aren't perfect. They aren't perfect. But if we seek God first, we will be greeting them in love, see them restored in the presence of God, and we will draw away. And then what will happen is, from within their own belief system, they'll begin to find things that, this really doesn't align with the nature of a perfect and loving God. I think we're going to set that aside today. And that was what was happening with me, because I was also facing a little bit of a challenge. It may not be described as a challenge to some, but as I was going to Bible studies with friends of mine that would invite me over, they'd be reading something on the page of the Bible. I would see different words than what they were saying. And for instance, that there's one point within Scripture where they said that you are to fear the Lord your God.
Yes, I always read about that.
And I was like, I'm even as I'm looking at the page, I'm thinking, why are you reading that? It says to hold Yahweh Elohim in awe above all things of creation. And God was illuminating my eyes, just like He took over your tongues to help your friend on the telephone. He took over my eyes, that I would see the truth of what He originally intended within that scriptural form, not what man had altered it to. So I had to reconcile the fact that I'm sitting here looking at this page and I'm seeing not what you just said, to hold in fear of God, but to hold Yahweh Elohim in awe above all things of creation. So as I said, that this is a basic introduction to where we are in grace healing. And I'm going to stop this now to keep this in that small window of time for each person on these videos, but we are going to form more videos. Ina and I are going to sit and we're going to put together a number of videos for each of you to review.
Yes.
And it'll give you an opportunity to observe the window that is grace healing. And we don't want you limited to the understandings we hold. We want you opened and freed from the limitation of a window and opened up to the limitless expanse of God's presence, opening into God's love. And that's what we want each person to discover, is a loving, pure, perfect, wisdom-filled, clarity-based, unity-based, perfection God. Not what man may have altered it through definitions of scriptural alterations or whatever, but the perfect God that we know, that was to be held in awe,
Yes.
not fear.
Absolutely.
So do know that we are available for you to reach at any time. We ask that if you find any blessing within the videos that follow, or within this video, the language instructions, the different things that you've received, please like and subscribe to the channel that is Grace Healing. We'd be grateful for your support, because you know that it does support the channel. If you've used YouTube at all, you know that it supports the channel, it supports us, and allows us to reach out and help more people.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's pretty awesome. And Ina, being our new executive director,
Wow.
is phenomenal, because it's something that's always been in my heart, but I know that it's something that God stirred within her, that we really need to get this going and get it done. So.
And I do want to say that it's all a divine appointment in what God is doing. I know there's many ministries out there, but this is one that's going to reach deep within the heart of those that coming to a greater awareness of who God is in your life.
Yes.
And we're not just here to do this for fun. We're doing it because we love Yeshua, and this is where we want to reach to you to let you know the love of God that He has in your
Yes.
life and what He has ahead for you. And there's more to come, so please reach out. We're here for you anytime.
Awesome.
Awesome.
We will have all the information and details below. You can take a look on the channel for information as far as phone numbers, how to reach out, the contact numbers through gracehealing.org, and the shop in order to get a hold of the book that is Grace Healing, A Covenant in Love. So be blessed. Have a great day. We look forward to connecting with you on the next video.
God bless, and we do love you.
Yes.
Yeah.